We have new episodes dropping every other week. You can find them early on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, or wherever you find your podcasts, or find the link below for our Megaphone landing page, and we will see you around the campfire.
Hey, I'm Jess,
And I'm Paul.
and welcome to Campfire Ashes. Now gather round, pull up a log, and let me tell you a campfire story. Oh, you are so full of shit, Don Smurl, Tina sneered. Unsurprising reaction coming from her. Tina Green didn't believe in spirits, or demons, or even angels. Nope, she didn't believe in anything. According to Tina, when you die, you're just dead. Oh yeah, Tina? Well, since you're not afraid of anything, why don't you come over to Don's tonight for our sleepover? Kimmy asked. We're gonna rent a scary movie, eat some Jiffy Pop. It'll be fun. Unless, you're scared or something. Sounds like fun. I'm there. Later that night, after the popcorn and the movie, Tina laid awake in her sleeping bag while Kimmy and Don were sound asleep. She laughed and even mocked them for saying evening prayers before bed, but now she was starting to wonder if that's what was causing the heavy feeling on her chest, keeping her up. Was she feeling guilty for laughing? Not particularly. She didn't believe in all that. So why on earth was she experiencing this crushing weight, almost immobilizing her? She shrugged it off and attempted to get up for a glass of water. Only she couldn't move. What the hell? She thought. The room was pitch black, so she couldn't quite make out any shapes, but she swore she could see the faint outline of a silhouette. Kimmy, this isn't funny, she whispered. What are you doing? Get off me. She snarled through gritted teeth, kicking her legs, and struggled to get up out of her sleeping bag, arms and shoulders still pinned to the ground. That's when she heard it. She thrashed with all her might to scooch herself out of the sleeping bag and out from under whatever was on top of her. She scrambled out of the bedroom and into the bathroom across the hall and slammed the door shut. Whatever the hell this is, it's not funny, Tina yelled from behind her closed door. She went over to the sink and splashed some water on her face. It'll take more than that to convince me, Dawn, she thought to herself. She grabbed a towel to dry her face, noticing only as she put the towel to her face how fleshy it felt and how putrid it smelled. Nearly gagging, Tina tossed the towel away and flicked on the light switch to see her hands covered in blood and a piece of what looked like pigskin in the sink. She screamed at the top of her lungs and dashed out of the bathroom door down the hall, booking for the staircase. She wasn't staying in this house for one more minute. Haunting or not, that's disgusting, she thought as she rounded the corner and took to the top step. She made it 2 more steps before she felt a distinct shove and tumbled headfirst down the stairs. Get out, she heard a raspy, disembodied voice yell from the top of the stairs. Finally, at the bottom of the stairs, Tina collected herself and felt a burning pain on her back where she'd felt the shove. She turned around to look at the top of the stairs and saw a shadowy figure floating down the stairs toward her at warp speed. Get out. Looks like Don Smurl wasn't full of shit after all.
Okay, so this is my nightmare. So what are we dealing with?
So this was inspired by a semi-local haunting that I wasn't alive for, but my parents were. This is the haunting of the Smurl house. So let me pull up
okay.
Yeah.
Or this is a Warren thing.
Yeah, so this is a Warren thing. So the Smurl haunting, I'm going to read this directly from the Wikipedia page about it. The Smurl haunting refers to claims made by Jack and Janet Smurl of West Pittston, Pennsylvania, who alleged that a demon inhabited their home between 1974 and 1989.
Okay, so I was alive for this.
Yes, I was not. But, so this became so popular that it became the subject of a 1986, again, I'm taking this from Wikipedia. Here, I'll just read it directly. The Smurls' version of their story was the subject of a 1986 paperback titled The Haunted and a 1991 made-for-TV movie of the same name released by 20th Century Fox. So this case gained at least like national popularity, enough that it became the subject of a book and a made-for-TV movie, and the Warrens were involved. The two reasons why I decided I wanted to talk about this haunted location in our spooky month, extravaganza, where we do one episode a week, was West Pittston is about
Really close to you, yeah.
15 minutes from where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And B, it's widely debated if this was a hoax or not. There's no concrete proof that this was real.
Which is actually common with anything that the Warrens
hauntings
dealt with.
Yeah, most hauntings, but specifically the Warrens.
Yeah, because the Warrens, like, as much as they've done, like, the documented cases, and a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, that actually happened. Like, anytime the Warrens were in on something, yeah, everybody kind of was like, did this really happen, or are you just kind of sensationalizing something for your own benefit?
Yeah, and I mean, they did that even with Amityville.
Mm-hmm.
Just off the top of my head, it basically became a thing where it's kind of like a catch-22, you know, like so for the people involved in the hauntings, the Warrens coming and you know, trying to help them rid themselves of whatever it was attached to them or their house or, you know, their child or anything. You know, it was a blessing for them. You know, somebody believed them, somebody listened to them, somebody was there to help them or at least try to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it completely discredited or, you know, removed all credibility that those people had about said haunting. It brought out all the skeptics.
Because this was actually towards the end of like the Warrens' career. Yeah. So like by this time, like I think that when you look at the Conjuring movies and stuff like that, those are the early days of or the earlier days of the Warrens, when not necessarily they were respected, but like
the more known cases?
Yeah, the more known cases.
Well, that's a good segue to my next point. Apparently, in the Conjuring universe, they're going to be making a movie about this.
Oh, really?
It's allegedly in pre-production. But yeah, so apparently they're going to turn this case into a movie in the Conjuring universe.
Oh, okay.
So another good reason for us to get a jump on that.
Yeah.
So that, you know, if that movie comes out, you could be like, oh, hey, I heard about this on Campfire Ashes podcast.
Mm-hmm. So the Warrens are always weird because like when they've apparently done like 1,000 cases or something like that. But if you look up like, hey, what cases did the Warrens come up? They like the internet only knows 6.
Apparently,
like, it's like 1,000 cases. They got 6 of them, and it's the Rhode Island case, the UK case, Amityville, the Smurl house, and like 1 or 2 others, Annabelle, and 1 other case, and like that's it. Like you can't find information without buying like books upon books upon books without like free information. 6 cases. They got 6 cases. That's all they got.
And again, that's mostly due to the fact that people are, you know, skeptic.
Yeah, very skeptic of their work specifically, not just ghosts in general. I mean, everybody has like ghost skeptics, but like the Warrens, especially towards the end of their careers, people were just like, I think you're just searching for relevance at this point.
Also, to be completely honest, and I don't know if anybody else has ever drawn this conclusion, but me personally, I feel like towards the end of their career is when the height of the satanic panic was going around.
That's also a thing, yes.
And with them calling themselves demonologists, you know, I feel like a lot of people had issue with that.
Yeah, I definitely do remember the satanic panic stuff. That was just weird. I actually had to deal with that recently.
Really?
Yeah, so like I'm not gonna name names, but like somebody was just like, it started out as like a weird political debate, and then it was just like,
Okay.
well, yeah, it's like obviously like it's satanic panic because like D&D is evil. It's fine now, but apparently it was evil in the 80s, and she corrected me. She was like, well, in the 80s it was like it was satanic, and I'm like, the game
No,
hasn't changed. The game
it
hasn't
has
changed
not.
one thing. If anything, the
Nope.
rules have changed to make things easier. But
And they've maybe added to the original rules, but
yeah, but none of the
that's
lore
it.
has changed. So
No.
if you can't be okay with it in 2022, and then like throwing people, well, no, it changed. I'm like, it didn't. It didn't. You're just not crazy anymore. And she was, well, I'm just not talking to you anymore. I'm like, well, that's fine, but like, you were wrong.
Yeah, you're
Just
still wrong.
yeah, it's like you're still not right in what you were saying. But we can stop this conversation if you'd like, but you're
We can
wrong.
agree to disagree, but
Yes.
you are still wrong.
Yeah.
Again, I wasn't even alive for any of I might have been alive for Satanic Panic. I don't know. I don't know when that stopped being a thing.
It's never really stopped being a thing because like it just morphed. So like D&D was like a really really big thing, and then those people just kind of needed something more. So like I think in the 90s it kind of like moved off a little bit. So like it started with Kiss, and then it moved to D&D, and then there wasn't really anything to hang their hats on for a while in the 90s, and then the Harry Potter books came out, and that's what they like
Valid.
they
Okay.
like glommed onto, like, because I
That is
remember in
valid.
church like one week, and I kind of laughed at it. Like I was just like, are we really doing this? And they were just like,
Did they give a sermon about it?
yeah, they gave a sermon
Oh,
about
wow.
about the evils of witchcraft and how they are indoctrinating our children with Harry Potter. I'm like, really, dudes? Really?
Yes.
Are we doing this?
This is why I stopped going to church.
Yeah, it was like it was actually
I
towards
know.
the end of me like going to church, because I'm like, oh, there's so much more more important things that you can talk about, and you're just like, this book with this child with a lightning bolt is evil, and they like divination and witches, and I'm like, you are really really like stretching on this stuff.
Yeah, Mom, if you're listening, and I know that you are, so sorry. Yeah, that's kind of why I moved away from like church Catholicism. You know, like I just feel like it's doing the same thing that it's claiming that these other things do that makes them bad. It's like forcing their beliefs onto you, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
But that's not what this episode's about. So back to
This episode is
well,
about the Smurls.
actually,
I mean, technically it is.
technically it is about forcing beliefs onto people. But not necessarily church beliefs. So, a little background, and I'm taking this directly from the history of that's on Wikipedia. Citing my sources. Most of this is Wikipedia. I will also, we'll provide the links and everything. I'll also be taking some of my information directly from the local newspaper that reported about this, that is still running today, and is still the newspaper that I occasionally like to read. But for now, a little history directly from Wikipedia. The Smurls moved into a double block house on Chase Street in West Pittston, Pennsylvania in August 1973, and they claimed that the premises were disturbed by a demon that caused loud noises and bad odors, threw their dog into a wall, shook their mattress, pushed one of their daughters down a flight of stairs, and, trigger warning for this next part, physically and sexually assaulted family members on several occasions.
Ugh.
Now, this was in 1973 that they moved in. It wasn't until 1986 that they brought in Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Okay.
Again, according to the Wikipedia, Ed Warren said
So
that the demon...
so they live with this for a decade. See, that's the thing. It's like,
Yeah, that's why
What?
it's... Yeah, that's, again, it adds to why people are a little skeptical about it. But according to Ed Warren, again, this is directly from Wikipedia, the demon that inhabited the Smurls' home was very powerful, and it shook mirrors and furniture after they tried to persuade it to leave by playing religious music and praying. Ed Warren claimed that he felt a drop in temperature, like a 30-degree drop in temperature, and saw a dark mass form in the home about 3 feet in front of him. And this demon, as he calls it, once left a message on a mirror telling him to get out. Now, the Warrens investigated this house for months. Like, it wasn't just like a one and done type of thing. And so they allegedly had a number of audio tapes containing like knocking and rapping and sounds caused by this demon, which is, again, their claim of, their proof that this is what happened. But now the skeptics...
Not to go on a little tangent, but last week's episode, that is 100% a red fox you have. You're safe.
Oh, thanks.
You're safe. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, like we went down a rabbit hole, and 100% a red fox. Like I know what red foxes sound like, but I didn't know they could make that sound, and I found a YouTube clip with the exact same sound.
Oh, wow.
And I mean like exact same sound. Could have been like your recording right over it. Like, it's the exact same sound. So you're a red fox. It's a red fox, so you're fine.
Well, it's either a red fox or something that wants me to think it's a red fox. So, and I really find that, I don't know.
Okay, well, I was trying to make things better for you.
Thanks for that. And, I'm going to tell myself that you're right, but still going to be cautious.
Okay. So go on.
So going on. So the skeptics of the Smurls and the Warrens claims that the Smurls' house was haunted. One of them is Professor Paul Kurtz, who at the time was a professor at the State University of New York at Buffalo, and at the time was the chairman of the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal. So, kind of knew what he was talking about, as much as you can, like he's a professor of the shit. He says that this is a quote, the Warrens weren't objective, independent, or impartial investigators. And Professor Kurtz characterized the Smurls' claims as a hoax, a charade, a ghost story. He also said that he believed the family's claims were possibly due to delusions or hallucinations due to brain impairment because Jack Smurl, the father, and the husband claiming that this was haunted, had surgery to remove water from his brain in 1983. Because he'd been experiencing short-term memory loss due to a case of meningitis that he'd had in his early 20s. But, for my sake, he had water removed from his brain in 1983. They claim that the hauntings started in 1973 or 70. Well, they moved in 73, but I think they said that the hauntings didn't start till 75 when they were there for 2 years. Again, timelines are a little messy here.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly hard to find information about this. I shouldn't say surprisingly hard, but harder than I thought it would be because, I grew up hearing this story. So to me, it felt like it was a bigger thing than I guess it is. But at that point, that's like 8 to 10 years of potentially being plagued by a demon.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, they find out that he has water in his brain that's causing short-term memory loss. Like, I don't know, that could be a demon thing. I could believe that, but, I believe in this stuff. I could see why somebody that's a skeptic would say that this is just a hallucination. But for me, again, that's just Jack that had the short-term memory loss and the issues. Like, his wife, his kids, his parents living on the other side of the double block all had their own experiences. His wife and his mother, both in the kitchen, but both in their own respective kitchens, on either side of their house, both saw this like shadowy demon figure appear to them at different times without ever, speaking to each other and telling each other that it had happened to the other. Again, that could all be hearsay, but I believe it. So, that's kind of why my story was centered around, a friend of, a supposed friend of the kid.
Yeah, a little skeptic that was just like, I don't believe it either.
Yeah, and, it's because it's possible that it didn't happen, but it's also possible that it did. And, take whatever stance you want on this. I'm just telling you, what was reported about it. I believe it. I believe it happened.
So do people live in that house anymore?
Yeah, so, so following up with that, the Warrens, their investigation and everything, everybody's saying like, oh, I don't think this is true. I think that they're full of shit. They, have the short-term memory issues, blah, blah, blah. A psychologist from Allentown by the name of Robert Gordon had commented that I'm also reading this directly off Wikipedia, commented that people often look at demonology to explain many tensions that they're experiencing as individuals and within their families. So psychologists were like, oh, this could just be that the family's experiencing a lot of tension and they created this story in their minds and it just blew out of proportion. And that same professor, Paul Kurtz from the State University of New York, actually was like, hey, Smurl family, we think that you guys should undergo psychological evaluation just to rule out that you have any psychological issues. And they refused.
Mm-hmm.
Because they said, we know that we're not crazy. We know that this is really happening. So again, it leads
and
to
also stigma from psychiatric stuff was significantly different in the 80s.
Agreed.
Like if you talk to a psychiatrist or a therapist, you were crazy.
Yeah.
And everybody around you thought you were crazy. In which case now it's like different, where it's just like, I'm going to therapy. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I see a psychiatrist and a therapist. What of it?
But so it's more like, whoa, I'm glad you're working on yourself. Where in the 80s, it was just like, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah. So now it's like, oh, hey, we, want to believe you, and it would be easier to believe you if you underwent psychological evaluation. So the Smurls are just kind of like, no, like, we know this is true. You're not going to convince us that we're crazy. Like, stop trying to make us look crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So they refused. So, like, on the one hand, you could see why they would refuse, but on the other hand, people took that as like, oh, they're actively refusing because they know that they're crazy.
Yeah.
And that they're full of shit. So, in 86, which is supposedly, like 3 years before the end of their claims, which is due to them leaving, they moved out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually at that point, the Smurl family was just tired of the constant bombardment from this, the 80s equivalent of this going viral.
Mm-hmm. Well, as soon as it goes into the paper, everybody's like reading it, and then they're coming over themselves too.
And then like the Warrens came over, and then all the newspaper people are coming to interview them, and all this happened. So that's when in 86 they decided to write the book version, the Haunted, that then got made, and like 5 years later got made into the made-for-TV movie.
Mm.
And they ended up writing this book alongside a newspaper writer from Scranton, like a relatively local guy. And then that book started receiving all of the flack that the Warren or the Smurls themselves had been receiving. So it kind of like took the spotlight directly off the Smurls and just went on to the book that they wrote.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of worked in their favor. But, they stayed in the house for another, like, 3 years before they ended up moving out. And, I have to find her name. Let me see. Okay. Before I get to that, in 86, the same year that the book came out, they had a reverend come in. And, according to the Smurls, they felt that after intense prayers, things were back to normal. So they ended up staying there another 3 years after that and then moved. And in 87, a year later, Janet Smurl, so the wife, had told reporters that they still like heard things and saw shadows. Only a year later, but then they stayed there for another 2 years. And then they moved out, and they moved, supposedly they only moved like over to Wilkes-Barre, so like not even far from where they were, so they didn't even go that far. But their house in West Pittston, I think it was 88 or 89, so like whatever year they moved out, because again, the reports are messy. Some say 88, some say 89. Another woman moved into their home, like their side of the double block, because I guess when they moved out, the Jack's parents also moved, like the whole family just up and moved.
Okay.
So I only saw about this woman who moved into their, like Jack and Janet's side of the house. And she had told reporters that she never encountered anything while living there whatsoever. Nothing happened to her. So it is possible that A, it was never real the whole time. B, whatever happened after those intense prayers, maybe it did actually leave. And, or possibly C, it latched onto the Smurls. But
And
I have
moved
not
on to-
found, yeah, but like, and moved on with them. But I have never found any like further reports of if the Smurls still claimed to be haunted after they moved. So not sure there. Not sure what happened after they moved out of this house. But then yeah, so in '91, there was a made-for-TV movie based off the book, based off of these stories, and it was, you know, semi-popular for people in my, you know, general area because it happened in our general area. But then that was that. You know, nothing else really happened from there. I haven't found any further comments on the life of the Smurls. I know they didn't move too far. I know for a fact that Jack is no longer alive. I don't know about Janet. I'm assuming if Jack's not alive, his parents are also not alive. But I couldn't find much information on them or even their kids or anything.
They kind of dropped off the radar once
Yeah,
they moved out. They were basically just like, we want to kind of get on with our lives.
Yeah, I mean, they were constantly being bombarded from people that believed them and from people that didn't believe them. I think, you know, there's a possibility that this entity was real and latched onto them and moved with them to their new place, and they just didn't reach out to anybody for help because they, you know, were constantly being told they're lying.
Or it worked.
Also true.
And they never have to worry about it again.
Yeah. So,
Well,
you know, take everything I said with a grain of salt. You know, if you don't believe in this kind of stuff, I'm not trying to convince you of it with this story. I'm not saying, like, here you go, here's, like, irrefutable evidence that hauntings are real.
Irrefutable evidence that demons exist and they're in Pennsylvania.
But I'm not saying that it's not real either, because I personally believe it. You know, they went through hell, and I just find it, you know, me personally, I just find it really, I don't want to say unbelievable, but hard to believe that they would claim this for a decade.
Yeah.
And say,
well,
like,
see,
all
here's the thing.
things happened to us.
As much as you hate, as much as it sucks, like everybody doesn't have the ability to just up and move, especially the 70s. So like the whole concept of like, well, why didn't you just move? Like maybe they sunk their savings into this house and couldn't move. Like it's not like a thing where like you can just up and leave, where it's just like, I'm breaking the lease, I'm out, and then you're in somebody else like two months later kind of thing. So like I get like why. Like I think I'm spoiled on like Paranormal Activity, because like Paranormal Activity, like all that shit happened in like a month, and it didn't happen every single day, which makes everything feel a little bit more believable. Because like if everything just like started a steady ramp up from day 1 to day 30, like why are you still there?
Yeah.
And like that's probably what happened with them too. Like it wasn't every single day was hell. It was just every now and then crazy shit happened.
Yeah. Yep. So believe that you will, but this one, it hits close to home for me because it is close to home for me. And
yeah, it's always cool. Like I'm always fascinated by the Warrens.
Yeah, I think it's exciting that this supposedly, you know, I haven't seen any like confirmation on it, but supposedly is being added to the upcoming list of Conjuring Universe films. I think that's really neat.
That is pretty cool.
This is something I grew up hearing about, and not a lot of people out of my area have ever heard of this.
We'll definitely hear. We'll be on the lookout for the next movie.
Yeah. You know, we will put all the links that I used in the show notes. I didn't, you know, I basically just like skimmed the surface to write the story, have it connect to this, but if you, especially the Times Leader article, that gives you kind of like a play-by-play by the years.
Okay.
Of what was going on, and it used to have photos. It doesn't have photos now. That's sad. They must be in the. Well, I mean, maybe if you like subscribe to their online newspaper.
Yeah, or it might be on microfiche somewhere.
Yeah.
There's a word I haven't used in a while. Microfiche.
Yeah. So we'll put all of that in the show notes. You can see everything that I had read and researched and worked off of. One of the links that I provided has a video interview with, I think it's Ed and Lorraine. Let me just make sure. Yeah, it's Ed and Lorraine. And yeah, you could tell it was toward the end of their career. They look it.
They look it.
They look it. They look so tired of everyone should.
They're just tired.
Yes.
All right, cool.
So there's a little video for you guys if you're interested in more information.
Yeah, we'll put all that in the show notes as usual.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? I think I didn't give like the most amazing like description of the story, but I think.
Well, I mean, you gave it clip notes of it and what it is. Like anytime you're dealing with like real stuff, like you could probably sit here and do like an hour and a half, 2 hours of like content on it, but like that's not our show. Our show is a little bit shorter.
Right. Oh, and I don't know if I touched on it when I was telling all of you about, these are some of the things that the Smurls claimed were happening to them in their house, but Janet Smurl, the wife, and I think either Jack's mother Mary or one of their daughters claimed to hear pig noises, smell putrid things, like all that gross stuff, which is why
you added that into the.
Yeah, I don't think I originally.
No, you didn't touch that, but like that's still creepy.
So that's what the pig thing was about. I didn't just decide, hey, this is funny.
Yeah. All right, guys, and remember, it's October, which means that like you don't have to wait 2 more weeks. Next week, you're getting a brand new episode, and all this month you're going to be getting new episodes every single Friday, and then November we'll be back to our regular schedule. But like we wanted to give you a heavy dose on for spooky month, and so here you go.
Spooky season. And remember, last one out douses the fire. If you heard something, no, you didn't. And if you're here with us next time, that means you made it to morning.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.